Premier Davis, Mr. Ball, Mr. McCurdy, Ms. Smith, teachers, parents, students, members of the general public, and all those watching via our live stream. Thank you for taking the time to be here this evening. This forum on education should prove to be very interesting as we hear the views of the political party leaders on education in this province and their proposals as to how to address the challenges facing the schools in our province. Tonight, in fact, is a continuation of a conversation on education we began over a month ago. Over the past several weeks, the NLTA, along with our educational partners, the Federation of School Councils and the Faculty of Education at Memorial University, has been traveling the province with the panel on the status of education in Newfoundland and Labrador. People across the province seized the opportunity to share their perspectives. We were impressed by the richness, thoughtfulness, and depth of the conversations which occurred. If there was doubt that education mattered to those in attendance, these discussions removed that doubt. The citizens of Newfoundland and Labrador are concerned about education and see education as a priority. Teachers in this province are also concerned about education. The questions that will be posed to the party leaders this evening are a compilation of the hundreds of questions received from teachers about education issues. As time permits, questions from the audience will be entertained. Our moderator this evening is Ms. Heather Smith, President of the Canadian Teachers Federation. Heather took office as President of the CTF in July 2015 after teaching in New Brunswick schools for 33 years. She has a Bachelor of Education in Elementary and Special Education and a Master of Education in Literacy. From 2011 to 2013, Heather was the President of the New Brunswick Teachers Association. In this role, she was a strong advocate for comprehensive wraparound services for students with high needs. As CTF President, she looks forward to continuing to advocate for at-risk students at the national level, especially in the areas of poverty and student mental health. Without further ado, I turn the proceedings over to Heather, who will introduce the party leaders and outline for us the procedures under which this evening's forum will be conducted. Thank you.
I now realize why I didn't teach high school, because I'm too short. I taught kindergarten, so I was all right there. I do want to thank you for inviting me to this public forum on education. It's my pleasure to moderate tonight's event, and I have to tell you, being an East Coaster, it's really soothing to come in and see all that water. I don't see that in Ottawa. River water and lake water is just not the same. I join NLTA President James Dinn in thanking the leaders in the audience for your attention this evening. Before we begin, please remember, put your cell phones on silent. The leaders will be given 3 minutes to speak to their party's plans for education. I will then be posing 5 questions to the leaders, followed by questions from the audience as time permits. Before 9 o'clock, at approximately 8:50, the leaders will be given 2 minutes to provide concluding comments. This forum is being live streamed across the province. I'd like to welcome those watching, and in particular teachers who have gathered in a number of sites across the province, including Cowhead, Happy Valley Goose Bay, Clarenville, Gander, and Corner Brook. At this time, I will provide a brief introduction of the leaders. Honorable Paul Davis, leader of the Progressive Conservative Party. Paul Davis, a graduate of Holland College and PEI, joined the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary in 1985 and served in a variety of roles, including patrol services, criminal investigation, community policing, and media relations, until his retirement from the force in 2010. Mr. Davis started political life at the municipal level in his hometown of Conception Bay South. In 2010, he was elected as the member of House of Assembly for the District of Topsail. He served as minister in a number of portfolios since that time. He was elected leader of the Progressive Conservative Party at the 2014 Leadership Convention and was sworn in as the 12th Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador on September 26, 2014. Dwight Ball, leader of the Liberal Party. Dwight Ball was born and raised in Deer Lake. He graduated as a pharmacist and as a young entrepreneur began a career involving pharmacies in Deer Lake and Springdale, real estate developments, and venture capital investments. Mr. Ball has been involved with many organizations at the municipal, provincial, and national levels and was first elected to the Newfoundland and Labrador House of Assembly in 2007 as a Liberal MHA for the District of Humber Valley. He became interim leader of the Liberal Party in January 2012 before being elected to the role permanently on November 17, 2013. Earl McCurdy, leader of the New Democratic Party. Earl McCurdy grew up in St. John's and graduated from Memorial University with a Bachelor of Arts degree. He worked as a reporter for the St. John's Evening Telegram in the 1970s, covering the labor beat, before becoming involved in the Fish, Food, and Allied Workers Union. He was Secretary-Treasurer of the Union from 1980 to 1993, when he was elected as the union's president. He served in that position until his retirement in 2014. Mr. McCurdy was elected leader of the New Democratic Party at the party's leadership convention on March 7, 2015. At this point, each party leader will be given up to 3 minutes to present an opening statement regarding the party's plans for education in the province. The order of presentation has been determined by random draw. The order of speakers is Mr. Davis, Mr. Ball, and Mr. McCurdy. Gentlemen, you'll see a sign go up when there's 30 seconds left. When the 3 minutes is up, I will say stop. If you don't stop, the mic will probably be cut. So, but I'm sure you've done some of this before and you're well prepared. Mr. Davis, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And Heather, thank you very much. And thank you, NLTA, and our province's teachers for providing the opportunity to focus on one of the most important issues in our province today, and that's the education of our children. Actions speak louder than words, and I'm prepared to be judged on the choices that we've made. Now, just think back for a minute, back to 2003 when we took over government. Do you remember the daily conversations of moldy schools, large class sizes, school fees, costly textbooks, and do you remember salaries and benefits, and insufficient salaries and benefits for our teachers back in those days? Much of that has changed under PC administrations, some of it on my watch. Now, I'm the new guy. I've only been here for a year, but I'm ready to do even more so you can do your work more effectively in your classrooms. We're investing in programs such as full-day kindergarten, excellence in mathematics, music, theater, and visual arts, CDLI, the Center for Distance Learning and Innovation, a new curriculum in technologies, skilled trades, and we're also investing in supports for you, our teachers. We've invested in new infrastructure, $731 million since 2003 for safe and healthy schools and a safe and healthy learning environment. 25 new schools, 15 of them that are already open, 40 major extensions and renovations, 31 of them already completed. And this year, we're investing another $95 million in school infrastructure. Now, I know that my colleagues here will be maybe talking about infrastructure, and they're going to say we've overspent, and they're going to say you've squandered the money. But I'd say ask them where those investments should not have been made. Ask them which schools we should not have upgraded or invested in. I'm not the one here this evening who's prepared to ratchet back investments in you and our students. On my watch, we'll continue to excel and stake our ground as a national leader in access, in outcomes, and especially in supports. We will be producing the highest performing graduates in the country within a decade. We'll double the number of guidance counselors in our school system and improve resources for our students. And we need to do a better job of bridging the gap between health and education. We need more mental health professionals directly connected to our schools. And we need hard caps, not soft caps. And we'll start with K to 3 and then 4 to 6 and so on. Now, you've said it loud and clear, and I've been listening. You face complexities in the classroom that didn't exist a decade ago, and we know those complexities are growing. And I hear you. Inclusion's yes, but we need it. But we also need to support you so it can work. We're in this together. So let's make the partnership work for the benefits of all of our children that we serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Ball, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Heather, and good evening. It's a great opportunity for me to be here tonight, and I want to acknowledge Mr. Davis and Mr. McCurdy, as well as Jim Dean, the president of the NLTA, and our moderator, Heather Smith, president of the Canadian Teachers Federation. And to all the administrators, the teachers, the parents, and the students who are here tonight in this auditorium, and to those of you that are in the communities that Heather just mentioned. The Liberal approach to governing this province would be guided by the vision of a stronger tomorrow. That vision is based on our recognition that education is an essential investment for government with immense social and economic benefits. Research shows that individuals who have access to quality education in the K-12 system are more likely to find employment, have stable families, lead healthier lives, and be productive citizens. We know investing in education is far more cost-effective than paying for social and economic consequences of an underfunded, low-quality educational system. Liberals want the best for the people of our province, and that means striving for an education system of the highest quality. And we know we have exceptional educators who lead with passion, integrity, and purpose to work with us to achieve that. In the most recent program for international student assessment, students scored below the Canadian average in math, reading, and science. Liberals know that this does not reflect the professionalism of teachers, your skills, creativity, and the commitment to the well-being of all our students. But it does reflect on the shortcoming in our province's education policies. The Auditor General himself said in June of 2015 that money going out the door is not a measure of success. So despite spending $20 million in an Excellence for Mathematics strategy, math scores declined between 2003 and 2012. And despite government's commitment during Budget 2015 to convene a group to review the math curriculum, there's been no evidence of action. So if we are going to prepare our students to perform on the world stage, we have to spend smarter. We have to listen to those on the front line, students, teachers, and administrators to get it right. A new Liberal government will establish a Premier's task force on improving educational outcomes. This will be a nonpartisan group of key stakeholders, including teachers, parents, whose mandate will be to examine the K-12 education system to recommend improvements, measurable goals, and milestones. We are committed to ensuring the resources are in place to make our K-12 system truly inclusive. We have a responsibility to teach our children to embrace diversity by embracing it ourselves. Liberals recognize we need a 21st century education system that teaches critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. And we will develop that system in collaboration with you. So I look forward to tonight's questions and starting this dialogue on improving our education system together.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Mr. McCurdy, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and my competitors here I've been meeting on a very, very frequent basis at events like this recently. NTA, as it was once known, and CTF were early acronyms in my life. My father served as the president of both organizations in his time, and later, so Ms. Smith, that where once he stood, you stand. Hey, that applause doesn't, or laughter doesn't need it in my time, right? And he also was the executive secretary of the NTA at the time of the landmark contract settlement, and I believe it was 1970 that began the move of teachers' salaries out of a pretty low level that existed previously. Somebody said to me once that what's in the cat is in the kitten, and perhaps there's some truth in that. But it's impossible to overstate the importance of a solid, successful education. That's the foundation of any modern, vibrant economy and society. So I think I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to talk about such an important topic. Children who successfully learn the academic basics are, off to a good start in life to pick on what line of work they choose to be in. Our schools and our teachers do much more than teach academic subjects. They raise and mold our future citizens. Our province's schools teach teamwork and creativity. They impart values and pride of place. A good education is the basis of a productive life. And yes, it takes money to do education right. But done right, it's a good investment in our future, which pays itself back over and over again. Earlier today, our party pledged to reverse the cuts the Conservative government made in this year's budget. In our view, our province's schools can't afford to lose nearly 80 teaching positions. We also committed to increasing the number of school counselors and school psychologists employed by the school boards to get the ratio back to where it belongs. All three parties have agreed that mental health needs in the province are urgent. We in the NDP believe that providing enough mental health practitioners to our students will go a long way to preventing longer-term, sometimes lifelong, mental health problems. An ounce of protection is worth a pound of cure. An NDP education system listens to the people who work in our classrooms every day. We appreciate the work you do, and I certainly look forward to the discussion that'll follow here tonight. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. McCurdy. Each party leader will now have 2 minutes to react to the opening statement of the other leaders. And that's not 2 minutes each, that's 2 minutes. You each have 2 minutes, but not for each other leader. The order of presentation will be the same as the 3-minute opening statement. Mr. Davis, you have 2 minutes to respond to Mr. Ball and to Mr. McCurdy.
Thank you, Heather, and I'm be surprised if I use my 2 minutes because I know we're going to debate questions and matters that are important to you. And there are similarities, and I believe there's also differences in what all three parties will present and what all three parties will be looking for and what we will be doing for education, for our teachers, for our students. And Mr. McCurdy kind of referred to it in his comments because our students are really tomorrow's future. And we know our students do very well after they graduate from grade 12 and go on to post-secondary education or move to their careers through the path that they follow. We know that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and our young people have been performing brilliantly in many, many aspects of business and community and leadership and so on. I won't take too much of the time on this one, but only to say I know tonight's discussions are going to be surrounding very much around supports within schools. And the discussions I expect will focus heavily on that. I know the complexities that exist in classrooms today are far outweigh and outreach those complexities that existed just a few short years ago. And as we grasp a better understanding of the complex needs of students and our people in our community, then that requires more complex solutions, and that means partnership and working together. I run on my record. I run on my record as a leader. I run on my record of giving back to my community. And some of you here in the room tonight know that I've spent many times, many hours in classrooms and in schools in my previous life in policing and as a community officer, and have had an opportunity. I'm not an educator. I'm nothing anywhere close to an educator. And I commend you for the work you do. And I have seen frontline the difficulties and the challenges day after day that you sometimes face in your classrooms. And we want to make improvements there for you, your ability to teach, and then also the outcomes for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Ball, you have 2 minutes to respond to Mr. McCurdy and to Mr. Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. And like Mr. Davis and Mr. McCurdy, I think we all agree and would support the notion that education is really the foundation of, is really an investment that any government could make in the future of our province. First and foremost, I would say, too, that a good education is really a primary determinant of health. So it affects not only the future of our young Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, but really affects the health of our communities, the health of our individuals. So it's important that we lay that foundation, we get that foundation early. When we see governments, and there's really an expectation that when we see our leaders, regardless of what political stripe, when they make commitments where there would be no cuts to education, people make decisions, and they make decisions in their own life. Teachers, I'm talking about now, and I'm not an educator. My wife is. She is a math teacher. But you make decisions in your life based on the information that you would get from your leaders. So when you get a budget announcement, or you get an announcement that says that there will be no cuts to education, well, there is an expectation that there would not be cuts, only to find out in this particular case, in just recent times, we found out just a year later that not only did we see cuts, but we've seen cuts in teaching units that led to changes in classroom caps as well. So when we make decisions, I think it's very fair as leaders that we share the information, with people in our province. We make decisions based on evidence. We share that information. So when we talk about school board amalgamation, actually just a few years ago now, we went looking for the evidence to support why the decision was made. And as an opposition leader at the time, that evidence has never been given to us or given to people in our province. Also, what I know that the teachers that I've talked to in the 4 years that I've been going around this province is that they want to be included in the decisions that's happening within their schools. Many teachers feel that they've been shut out. And I know that the new ideas, the opportunities that we see to meet the challenges that we have in our education system we will get the best results when we include the frontline workers, teachers that are on the day-to-day jobs, teaching our next generation of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. So it's critically important that we do this, we speak to our teachers, we include them in this decision. That is the reason why we've already announced that we would put in place a Premier's Task Force reporting to the Premier's Office on educational outcomes. So,
thank you, Mr. Ball.
Well, thank you.
Mr. McCurdy, you have 2 minutes to respond to Mr. Ball and to Mr. Davis.
Thank you. We've heard Mr. Davis commit to things that important things that his party should have done over the past 12 years. We've heard Mr. Ball talk about some things he might do. What we announced this morning is some things we will do if we're successful on November 30th. In difficult times in the past, valued public sector jobs like teachers and healthcare providers have been among the first to get the axe. We believe that, they're so fundamentally important to our society that oftentimes the choice in various areas of policy endeavor is pay now or pay more later. If we get out ahead, identify root causes, address them, then what we do not only is improve the quality of life of students in the case of education or patients in the case of healthcare, but it's also good management of the province's resources because you head off serious problems in the long run. It's obviously, I know from firsthand experience, growing up with a school principal for a father, both the challenges that the job brings and the dedication that's required of a school teacher. My understanding is it's gotten much more complex since those days, and that challenges like autism, mental health challenges, and the like, students with complex needs, those present themselves as real challenges to teachers, and they need the proper supports to make inclusion work. So, I look forward to the discussion tonight, and I'll let it go with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCurdy. We now have 5 questions on significant issues determined by the Newfoundland Labrador Teachers Association and the Canadian Teachers Federation. The teachers have been provided these questions in advance to assist in preparation. Each of the party leaders will have a maximum of 90 seconds to respond to each question posed. The order of response will alternate from question to question. First question response will be as follows: Mr. Ball, Mr. McCurdy, and Mr. Davis. First question. In a 2012 Canadian Teachers Federation survey, 91% of Newfoundland and Labrador teachers identified an insufficient number of school-based mental health professionals as a potential barrier to providing mental health services for their students. In that same survey, among Newfoundland and Labrador respondents, about 84% identified an insufficient number of community-based mental health professionals, and almost 80% said a lack of coordinated services are barriers to providing mental health services for students. Please describe how your party would implement changes to ensure that the students of Newfoundland and Labrador receive the mental health services they deserve. Mr. Ball, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. And no other party leader has been more vocal than I have been about mental health and addictions issues in our province, because I believe that mental health is as important as physical health. In recognizing that mental health is a true priority, we have a significant mental health deficit to address. We're committed to developing a mental health and addiction strategy, including replacing of the Waterford, because we need a modern facility to deliver modern care. We also know that teachers are facing increased pressures educating today's students. Mental health issues like anxiety, depression are prevalent in today's world, and sadly, it impacts our children too. Our education system is a fundamental institution where we can identify and address these issues at an early age. So under a new Liberal government, a mental health and addiction strategy, we will consider the education system as the primary delivery mechanism for mental health services. This will include a focus on healthy living and mental health as part of the iSchool curriculum. We will also launch an innovative youth wellness program and establish regional adolescent health clinics offering a variety of services, including counseling. But we can't advance any of these important initiatives without looking at resources. The Premier's task force will review mental health supports in schools today, including the allocation of school counselors. So a new Liberal government will provide mental health assistance and support to students in our schools.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Mr. McCurdy, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. Earlier today, I had the privilege, to announce, along with my colleague, Jerry Rogers, the MHA for St. John's Centre, who spearheaded the formation of the Community Health Mental Health Coalition, that the launch of which filled this entire auditorium and really brought the discussion on mental health into the mainstream of discussion in the province. We announced funding for more school counselors and more school psychologists. This is an especially important issue at a time when we're seeing such strain on our mental health system. Between 14 and 25% of our youth have significant mental health issues, and that should be an alarm bell for all of us. Mental health problems affect all aspects of a child's education, from academic achievement to social development, and in extreme cases, their ability to complete their education. Only one school counselor to every 600 students is not enough. Our plan announced this morning will reduce this ratio to 1 to 250. These are professional, caring people, but to try and deal with 600 students is really not feasible. The children with the most severe needs were being identified, while many who are struggling slip through the cracks. It's clear we need more in-school counselors and psychologists in the system. The well-being of our youth is an issue we have to address as a community. I took note of Jim Dinn's comment yesterday on a call-in show when he said the system has done a lot to encourage students to come forward with mental health challenges, but we're falling down in providing the resources to help them. That's what our announcement was about this morning. We need to recognize the importance of early intervention, not only on helping individual students, but to help the province as a whole in the long run. We want to see our youth succeed, complete their education, and find fulfilling careers and start a family here in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. McCurdy. Mr. Davis, you have 90 seconds to respond.
I thought you were going to give me some extra time there
No.
for a second. No.
I almost did, though,
No?
didn't I?
Oh, you did, yeah. Thank you. It's an important question. And for me, I've made mental health and wellness a significant pillar in my plan. It's a high priority for me, and it's a high priority for our party, and will be for our government, and remains to be. And I believe that health and education as well is not only is it on top of mind for teachers, but health and education together are the top two concerns and priorities for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. And we have invested outside of the education system on health and wellness. We've built 2 new facilities for our youth, one in Grand Falls, Windsor, one in Paradise. One is designed for youth with addictions, and the other one for youth with complex mental health needs. And that's going to assist those who need those assistances most. But also, we will introduce a multi-year plan on mental wellness that will ensure that our approach to mental health, mental illness, and addictions is adapting and improving to better meet the needs to the population. And that's what we have to do. We have to adapt. We have to change with the times, and we have to meet the needs of our population, especially our students. The new plan will follow on investments over the past 5 years of $60 million in the mental health and addiction system, which some of them I just referenced. And we'll also expand access to school counselors and on mental health professionals in the K-12 system, as I referenced in my opening comments. And I mentioned earlier, I'm not an educator and I'm not a teacher. And I believe in bringing the right people to the room to deal with matters that are important and topics to those stakeholders. And I'm a full believer in a team effort and bringing the frontline people to the table, and your representatives with the NLTA. So we need to collaborate with teachers, with your representatives, and with students, and also with parents. And we need to talk about how we promote and understand mental health issues better. I stood on this very stage last year when a student in this school led the charge on increasing the discussion about mental health among students. And he's done a great job. It filled a room, and he's done it since then. I know Jerry Rogers was involved in that as well, Earl. And it was a great project, and we know that's spreading throughout the province.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
understanding
Paul.
is a big part of it, but also reacting to it as well. Thank you.
The order of speakers for this question will be Mr. McCurdy, Mr. Davis, and Mr. Ball. The NLTA invited teachers to provide potential questions for this forum and received almost 14 pages of questions from across the province. About 1/3 of these questions were related to the provision of human resources necessary to meet the needs of students in the inclusive classroom: special needs teachers, speech-language pathologists, literacy and numeracy support teachers, English second language teachers, guidance counselors, educational psychologists, student assistants, occupational therapists, social workers, and health professionals, to name a few. Teachers are frustrated that they don't have the supports necessary to meet the needs of their students in the inclusive classroom, a complex issue. But to put it simply, what is your party's position on the inclusive classroom? If you form the next government, how do you intend to ensure that the inclusive classroom has the necessary supports to enable teachers to meet the needs of their students? Mr. McCurdy, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. Our party believes that an inclusive classroom is one in which all students, regardless of academic ability, sexual orientation, cultural background, or family situation, are seen as important members of the school community. This morning we announced an investment in more school counselors and school psychologists. Our inclusive classrooms are underfunded and poorly resourced. For example, I heard from a teacher with 8 special needs children in his classroom, only 2 of whom are receiving the in-class support they need. This isn't working for those students, the remaining students, or the teacher. Inclusion should be taken into consideration when we are planning and building new schools. Do we have enough room in our classrooms to accommodate the number of students in the catchment area? Do we have enough teachers to meet the unique needs of each student? We can't just talk about inclusion if we don't take the steps to make it work and provide the resources, the supports that are needed. Not to be neglected is support for teachers. Every year, administrators are tied up for months appealing their allocations for special needs students. In the meantime, students are struggling without the supports they need. Thank you. New technology can be a huge help in meeting the diverse abilities of our students, but the mere presence of technology is not enough. Our teachers need up-to-date training to use the technology to its fullest extent. Teachers are the ones on the front lines. We must listen to their voices and respectfully collaborate with them so we can best meet the needs of our students and the professionals who work with them every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCurdy. Mr. Davis, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And as I referenced earlier, I know being an educator is tough business, and an inclusive classroom is a complex place on a regular basis, on a daily basis, hour by hour, and actually minute by minute. It was in 2009 when the formal inclusive education initiative was launched with 30 schools, and today there's 205 that are directly involved. We know that there's 1,700 days of substitute teaching time that's allocated to allow for professional development for inclusive education. And we remain committed to it, but we have a responsibility to get it right, to make sure it works for our students, but also for our educators. And this year, while there's $114 million that's been budgeted to support inclusive education initiatives, it's important that it's used wisely and correctly, and that we invest where we need to invest to make sure we get this done right. And that includes, that's 114 includes salaries for all of the ones that were laid out in the preamble of your question. And we've also added student assistant hours. And as we know, as student enrollment continues to decline, we haven't made any reductions in the formula for guidance counselors and educational psychologists and SLPs and so on. But we have to make those increases, as I've talked about earlier, and that's included in our plan. We have to collaborate with our partners. We have to collaborate with you. We have to give you the supports that you need. We need to make sure that you have the personnel and the access in your classrooms, and not just by numbers, but by actual needs of individual people and individual students, because we know each individual child has their own unique needs, and we need to be able to address that and deal with it properly and give you the supports that you need as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Ball, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you, Heather. And I'm not surprised that 1/3 of the questions were about inclusion. We hear it quite often from families and from teachers. So we believe that the current concept of inclusion education lacks the supports needed, and it lacks the vision for student success. It was short-sighted and irresponsible to implement an inclusive model without adequately resourcing it. So expecting teachers just to simply handle it without managing the change is really a disservice to teachers and to students and to families. The resourcing is inadequate. Everyone knows this. And I know that you've been calling government to really commit to inclusion. The last time that we questioned the minister who was responsible, Derek Daly at the time, on the inadequacies in the current system, he really tried to shut the conversation down by suggesting that we were advocating for segregation. So there's a real take it or leave it attitude with inclusive education from government right now. So if elected, one area of the focus of our task force will be inclusive education. And we will ensure you receive the support that you need, because we know that teachers have always been inclusionary. You have always found a way. So it's not on you. This is about acknowledging and expanding needs and the resources required to support those needs. So in doing this, we will ensure we have the right mix of professionals in the classroom to ensure students get the best education possible and that everyone learns what inclusion really means. So I'm encouraged by the creation of a joint committee to review inclusive education, and I look forward to the recommendations of that committee.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. For question 3, the order of speakers will be Mr. Ball, Mr. Davis, and Mr. McCurdy. The next most common topic raised in the questions from teachers relates to class size and teacher allocations. When governments experience budget pressure, it seems that cuts to the public service and teachers has been an automatic response. However, research shows that a well-educated population is key to health and economic prosperity, and that a well-funded public education system is a good investment by government as opposed to an expense to be cut. If you become the next premier, will you commit to reversing recent cuts to teacher and administrative allocations, no further increases in class sizes, and improving allocations to identify under-resourced areas such as guidance counselors, literacy, numeracy support, and teacher librarians, to name just a few, as per the recommendations from the Teacher Allocation Commission? Mr. Ball, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. Well, capping class sizes is necessary to providing equitable education opportunities for students. 3 years ago, government assured the people of our province that frontline education services would be exempt from budget cuts. 1 year later, they cut 160 teaching positions, but assured that the public there would be no changes in the K-9 class caps. So in April of this year, however, they announced a cut of another 77.5 teaching units and a subsequent need to increase class caps. So we understand that given the current ratio and allocation, school councils are generally only able to perform a fraction of the necessary scope of practice. We hear most that only are able to work about 30% of the students with the most complex needs, so people are being left out. In 2015, Newfoundland and Labrador Federation Student Councils requested a 1 to 300 ratio of student counselors to students at a minimum, as well as creating a new allocation for youth, mental health, and addiction counselors at a ratio of 1 to 500 students. We also know that the NLTA is recommending a 1 to 250 ratio for school counselors to students. So our task force will not only review the ratio, but also the roles of school counselors and psychologists, and ensuring we have the right mix of professionals in the classroom. Collaborating with you, it will be important to do those reviews. So through smarter spending, sustainable investments, and working with you, you are the people that know, we will provide the best education responsible for our students.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Mr. Davis, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Well, thank you, and thank you very much. It's interesting to see, if you think the first question, the second question, and this question again are very similar. And they deal with resources in the classroom and in the schools. Supports for you as educators, supports for students, and where the needs exist most. And I'm really not surprised to see that this is the focus today, as I talked about earlier, in the increasing complexities that we face in classrooms. Well, I don't think we need a task force to determine that we need more resources. We know that now. I know that now, that we need to support more resources. And with my plan, we're committed to that. We're committed to increase those resources with you, but in delivering those resources, we must work in partnership with you, the teachers, with the NLTA, with our stakeholders, to make sure that they're applied most effectively, that they benefit most students and most teachers in the classroom as well. We continue to make investments. We have the highest level of per pupil funding in Atlantic Canada. And when in your question, you talked about well-funded public school. I believe that's a well-funded public school, but we have to apply those resources where we need them, and we also have to add those resources, as I've talked about before. So we have to continue to make those investments. It's the second biggest investment we make as a province, department by department, and responsibility by responsibility. We have to continue to do that, and we have to add those resources, as you've asked about in question 1, question 2, question 3, and we'll do that in partnership with you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. McCurdy, you have 90 seconds to respond.
The answer is yes.
Thank you.
And in fact, just this morning, not waiting for any task force or any advisory council, we announced we would reverse the decision to cut the 77.5 teaching units that contained in this year's budget. We know that a typical St. John's school theoretically has a student-to-teacher ratio of 12 to 1, which sounds pretty good and may help justify cuts to education. But I would challenge you to show me a single classroom in the Metro St. John's area that in fact has only 12 students. Because, of course, as most people know, that number takes into account administrators, guidance counselors, music and gym teachers, and so on. Cuts are especially hard-hitting in schools with multi-grade classrooms. The issue of class size is significant. As we know, the teacher-to-student ratios are strong indicators of student achievement. It's known that many families move to St. John's metro region so they can access more services, particularly if their child has special needs such as autism or significant health issues. Therefore, it's not uncommon for teachers in a classroom to have 3 to 5 students with special needs in a classroom of 25 students. Virtually mission impossible without the proper supports. Cutting teaching positions to save money undermines our children's future. The money we invest now in our education system into our youth will help them in their futures, help them stay in the province, and will help the future economy of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. McCurdy.
Thank you.
I have to admit, while I'm reading these questions, I can identify with every one of them, but this next one I can certainly identify with, because until June, well, the end of June of 2015, I was a principal resource teacher and half-time teacher at a small rural school in New Brunswick. So this one I can identify with. The order of speakers will be Mr. Davis, Mr. McCurdy, and Mr. Ball. Approximately 28% of Newfoundland and Labrador's 262 schools have a student enrollment of less than 100 students. 38 schools have an enrollment of less than 50 students. Our small schools face challenges unique to them, which include multi-grading, part-time principals, part-time secretaries and other school staff, a lack of specialists and other supports. A principal of a small K-12 school in central Newfoundland describes her position as 50% school principal, 1 class of grades 4, 5, 6 language arts combined, 1 class of grades 7, 8, 9 language arts combined, 1 class of grades 4, 5, 6 math combined, and a high school biology. And she's still teaching. She says she's also the librarian, janitor, unqualified nurse, student assistant, and psychologist. The question is, if elected as the next government, what more would your party do to better ensure students in our small schools are provided with equitable educational opportunities and resources than are currently available to students in larger schools? Mr. Davis, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. That's a real multitasker, isn't it? Is it ever? And we know we're a resourceful lot, and as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, we always identify that we are a resourceful lot, and we have a tendency to get the job done, and that certainly speaks to that. We know that there are so many rural communities with very small school populations, and similar to a question and discussion recently had around health, when the point was made that said, well, why can't we have a cardiologist in every community? And it's a similar kind of stressor because of our geography and our small population. Well, we've invested, as you know, in CDLI, and we know that that's providing better outcomes for many students in rural communities, and some of the best qualified, best capable teachers, highest qualified teachers as well, are delivering those programs, and that probably wouldn't be available in many of those small communities. But we're going to continue to invest and partner. We have to look for best practices, and we have to seek out those best practices to find how do we deliver those those abilities, those courses, those trainings, those opportunities for our students in rural areas. So we have to continue to invest in state-of-the-art with schools and classrooms and laboratories, especially in the technological resources, in distance education for rural and remote communities, and new curriculum and new technologies with skilled trades programs and so on. We've got to continue to make those investments, but I also know that teachers do really well in some rural communities. And I was talking to one of my colleagues today, and we're talking about a rural community where it's a small school where not every year they have graduates, but they do have graduates who've gone on to become professionals in a broad range of areas and very successful as doctors and as engineers and teachers. And they came from a small school. That didn't stop them from being successful. But we have to continue to invest in technologies, utilize the best resources we have, which are our teachers, and make them available to most of the schools that we can in a broad-ranging way.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. McCurdy, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. Small schools, of course, are not a new issue in our province, given our unique geography and our scattered population. It's an issue that will take a lot of creativity to solve. Studies show that multi-grade classrooms are not necessarily linked to lower student achievement than single-grade classrooms, so it wouldn't be reasonable to underfund small schools and then point to them as failures as the reason to close them. As mentioned in the question, several of these schools have staff that, to put it mildly, are spread too thin. The need as well as enrollment should be taken into account in determining teacher allocations. And large centralized schools don't suit all circumstances. For example, a school like Stella Maris in Trepassey, which has continually declining enrollment, but is too far from the nearest alternatives for busing to be practical. Schools in small communities meet a number of needs in addition to educating young people, from being the library to being a community center and various other purposes. A school closing is a very serious blow to a community. Technology and distance learning can be used in cases where certain classes simply can't be offered in a particular area. In those cases, though, we need to make sure that we're providing teachers and students with appropriate technology and with adequate support to ensure that distance learning achieves its objectives. The quality of the education a child in Newfoundland, Labrador receives should not be dependent on where they call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCurdy. Mr. Ball, you have 90 seconds to respond.
When I listened to the question, one thing I think that was left off it, because I have many small schools in my own district, is that a lot of those same teachers are fundraisers as well. We have 75 small schools in the province today, and 38 of those have enrollment of less than 50 students. And these teachers are doing an exceptional job of educating students with limited resources in multi-graded classrooms. So our plan review of outcomes will consider not only how the education is delivered in small schools, but also in large schools as well. We won't be bound by the system as it works now, because it doesn't seem to be working as well as it should be. So when you have teachers who are struggling to be all things to people because all things to all because they work in a small school, that tells us that we need to be more innovative in finding solutions to the problems that are facing small schools. So we will approach this challenge in a way that we approach all the challenges, and that's in collaboration with those who understand and know the issues the best. Certainly one of the biggest challenges is ensuring the equitable educational opportunities is access to technology, including adequate internet bandwidth in schools. Ensuring schools have the tools that they need means engaging with teachers and allowing you to be part of those solutions. So it will mean working with you to create a plan and taking action on that plan with measurables that we put in place and using our resources wisely. So we want to help bridge the divide so that ensuring that we have educational opportunities in all our province, including small schools. And in order to do this, we will need to work with you.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Question 5. The order of speakers will be Mr. McCurdy, Mr. Ball, and Mr. Davis. Teachers report an erosion in student accountability as new assessment and evaluation policies have been adopted which decrease the ability of teachers to exercise their professional judgment. There's also an increase in incidences of student violence, with teachers alarmingly often being the recipients of punches, kicks, bites, and verbal abuse. What steps will your party be prepared to take to help restore student accountability and protect teachers to ensure they can work safely? Mr. McCurdy, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. The NDP plan is to assist teachers so they're not alone in dealing with student issues. That's why today we announced the preventative measures of hiring more school counselors and school psychologists so they can work with students before crises occur. We believe that everybody should be able to go to work without fear of being verbally or physically assaulted. Although Mr. Davis and I were both in previous occupations where that wasn't a guarantee, wasn't a sure shot. There are often complex reasons for a child acting out. We need clear policies concerning appropriate behavior and the consequences of violence. The increasing number of reports of teachers being bitten, kicked, and hit and so on by students is a symptom of underlying deficiencies in our system. It really goes back to, in part at least, to a couple of the earlier questions as to how we better address the mental health needs of our students. How can we better accommodate special needs students in an inclusive setting? I've said it before, I'll say it again, we need more supports for teachers. We need adequate training so that mental health problems can be identified and addressed early. We have to work to reduce the stigma attached to using services. Teachers are so invested in the well-being of their students that they put up with increasing workloads, reduced supports, and even violence. We have to address that. Teaching is considered to be one of the most stressful professions, but it doesn't have to be that way. We have to listen to what teachers have been telling us for years. Their voices need to be heard and respected. Our future depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCurdy. Mr. Ball, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Well, your workplace needs to be a safe and respectful environment. And when it's not, there needs to be accountability, and then there needs to be action. So instilling the value of accountability in students is crucial to setting them up for success. So the current PC No Zero policy is not on with us. It bears no resemblance. It bears no resemblance to the real world, and is something we'll cancel as a new Liberal government. Students need a robust and a challenging education. Right now, teachers are busy rescheduling and redesigning tests to accommodate students who didn't make the deadline imposed on them, and that's a disservice to teachers. So in response to this, teachers will receive our full support in administering a more rigorous standards in work that's assigned. And then there's violence against teachers. The Safe and Caring Schools approach has been around now for 15 years. There's been a lot of discussion, but there's a lot more opportunity for action. I think the issue of violence in schools, violence against teachers, goes back to needing more accountability in our system. But it's also reflective on the lack of mental health supports in schools, as well as the stability of the family unit, economic factors, and other influences in our society. Children are learning unhealthy relationships and violence, and this behavior manifests itself in schools. The world is changing, and so are the demands on your profession. So we believe with the right supports, the K-12 system has a potential to positively influence behavior by getting to students when they are young and correcting those early habits that they learn elsewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Mr. Davis, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. This question out of all of them is probably the question I gave most thought to and consideration to, a fair bit actually. And it probably has to do with my own background, which you're not really, Earl, but how you described it. But I did, I spent 25 years in policing, and many of those years in classrooms, as I said, in schools, and exposed to violent circumstances. Your question really about two things here, but yet they come together. And you know, the school district, the board policy is on the no zero policy. And I tell you, to be honest with you, I've heard enough of it. I've heard enough about it to know it just doesn't work and it gotta go. Simply gotta go. And if the board, where it's their policy, wanted to stick to the policy, then we still have a means to take that responsibility back to government and we can make the decision for them, and I'd be willing to do that too if the board was going to hold strong on that policy. Accountability is critical of all ages, and we start with our children very, very young and teach them how to be accountable. And we become accountable through our entire lives. We can't have a diversion or a change in that because you happen to be in a school setting. School administrators and teachers need to have the right to hold students accountable to the responsibilities they have as students. And we need to give that accountability, ability for accountability back to administrators and to teachers. And you're the one in the best position. When you're experiencing these types of behaviors, you're in the best position to respond to them. And for violence in any setting, unacceptable under any circumstance. I don't have any tolerance for violence, especially in schools with students and against our teachers. It does mix with the first part of it on accountability. If we continue to hold students accountable in the first place for their actions and activities, their requirements, their education, the tasks they've been assigned to do, then if that can be held, they can be held accountable for those things. They can also be held accountable for their actions, and then I believe that will reduce the amount of violence in schools. It will protect our teachers. It'll provide a healthier environment for learning for all, and we also know how those types of activities upset other students and other activities in the school.
Thank you,
and that's
Mr.
too
Davis.
valuable for other students as well. So anyway, thank you. I could go on all night about this one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The next question, I will call upon Mr. Peter Whittle, President of the Federation of School Councils, who has a question to pose to the leader.
Well, first thing I'll say is I wish elections were every 2 years, as bad as this fall's been, because there's a lot of common sense being talked about on the stage tonight that probably should have already occurred. This is a bit like Christmas Eve, except there's only one of you going to be Santa when it's all said and done. So, the Federation, we believe education of our province's children should be one of our top priorities, and I'm glad to hear that you feel so as well. Our society should value our teachers, educational outcomes, and our infrastructure every bit as much as we ask our students to value education. A shift in our collective attitude toward the value of all the components which make up our education is needed. The first 13 questions covered a lot of the material we might have wanted to ask tonight, so I'm going to be maybe a little self-serving in my question. As school councils, we know the value of education. School councils are one, if not one of the only groups in the province with a legislative status and a specific mandate that are expected to carry out that mandate without any allocated funding. It just doesn't make any sense. The Federation would like to see the individual school councils provided with an operating budget of at least $500 each and reverse the succession of cuts to the Federation's operating grant over the past 8 years. I ask each of the leaders, if you form the government of Newfoundland and Labrador after this election, will you follow the example set by all the other jurisdictions in this country and provide funding to support the role and the work of the volunteers which make up the 262 school councils in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Thank you, Mr. Whittle. The order of speakers is Mr. Davis, Mr. Ball, and Mr. McCurdy. Mr. Davis, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Yes. I was a school counselor. I was a school counselor in my own hometown at Topsail Elementary for a number of years. I understand the value of school councils, the partnership they create between parents and families, the school and the educators within the school. bring a perspective about concern and care for your own children, their education, and the environment in which they're learning in, activities that are available to them within the school. And yes, and I know that they can be hard to operate with limited funding and limited resources, and same with your provincial organization. And the answer is yes, absolutely. See the value in it, and I agree with it.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Ball, you have 90 seconds to respond.
I got a feeling he's going to get a quick consensus on this stage tonight, because I do understand the valuable role that school councils play in our schools. Education, as Mr. Whittle just said, for me, I know as leader, is certainly a top priority for me. I understand the benefits that it has on our society, and I understand the valuable role that our volunteers, play in our school system. So I'll just really, to the sake of getting right to your point and getting to the question so that we can save some time for other questions, not to drag the puck or chew up the clock, yes, we will reinstate that.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Mr. McCurdy, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Yes, and I don't need them all. It's to me, it's a no-brainer that the school councils are an important part of the interface between students, parents, school boards, teachers, and the provincial government. It makes sense to give them resources to allow them to carry out their work.
Thank you, Mr. McCurdy. Santa came early. Question 7, Scott Crocker, Executive Director of the Autism Society of Newfoundland and Labrador, will pose a question to the leaders.
Good evening. Memorial University just completed a needs assessment survey of the autism community in our province. More than 2/3 of caregivers surveyed had significant difficulties with accommodations in the inclusive classroom. Fact 1, only half of the educators reported having any opportunity at all to avail of professional development related to autism. In fact 2, student assistants reported not having appropriate training or responsibilities, and that the department's allocation model is broken. Additional need has to mean additional support. If your party forms the next government, how will you address these critical issues in education?
Thank you, Mr. Crocker. The order of speakers will be Mr. Ball, Mr. McCurdy, and Mr. Davis. Mr. Ball, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for the question. Is one I know as an MHA that we get quite often really at our district level as we deal with families, as we deal with teachers, particularly around autism and the complexities that it creates in classrooms. As an example, I will tell you that I know in our own community, who would have thought, back early days that you would see service dogs in classrooms. Well, that's happening today, and teachers and other students they deal with this. So we understand that it's not a numbers game. It's really about the needs that happens in our classrooms. So so what we've agreed already to do is to, when you look at the applied behavior analysis, we need to extend that beyond grade 3. That's something that we've agreed to do, because simply it's not about numbers, it's about needs. It's about adding those resources in the classrooms right now, because teachers, as you know, it's not about, can they deal with it? What they do is they need the resources to be able to deal with that. So it's something, Scott, I thank you for the question. It's something that, as I said, we need to put in place an autism strategy, but part of that is the applied behavior analysis that would occur beyond grade 3. It's more about the needs that occurs in the classroom and an understanding and a recognition that great work that teachers are doing today. So that's a discussion that we would look forward to having with your group and making the necessary improvements where they're required.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Mr. McCurdy, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you, and thanks for the question, Mr. Crocker. A couple of things. One, we would, and just a couple of points first. I've got brought to my attention in a couple of ways recently, just, something I didn't realize, just the extent of the autism, how frequent it is in the province. Number one, at a public forum attended by parents of autistic kids a few months ago, and then canvassing door to door, struck me how many times parents raised with me the problems and challenges that they had. A couple of things we would do, certainly the increased funding for psychologists and counselors I described earlier would certainly help. We would propose an extension of of the Applied Behavioral Analysis Program beyond grade 3 to late diagnosed children or others that clearly need it. We would support the provision of occupational therapy services in school. We're on record calling for a needs-based allocation formula. And this is clearly one of the biggest challenges, I think, facing our education system now, is there clearly the need has been identified, and we have to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCurdy. Mr. Davis, you have 90 seconds to respond.
I think we're almost starting to repeat ourselves again, are we? I fully agree that, and we've talked about this over and over tonight, so I won't get into it all again about how we need to improve on resources in the classrooms so that all of you as teachers are better equipped and better able to do your jobs as well. First thing with autism, and Mr. Crocker, you and I have talked about this in the past a number of times, is on IQ 70 and to replace IQ 70. That's the first step we need to do, and I'm on the record as committed to doing that. And secondly, yes, education for our teachers and for student assistants is absolutely critical, especially when we know that when it comes to many areas, such as autism, when it comes to different areas of mental health, the knowledge that we have is continuing to evolve. Best practices continue to change. And the only way to keep up with best practices and best opportunities is to continue to train, continue to educate. And we know there is a new autism spectrum disorder training program, and we are supporting that. We believe in it. We have to give you the tools and understanding, best practices, evolving knowledge, continuing education, and also the supports that need to go around that from a human resource perspective and make sure that we have all the resources necessary in the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. The next question is from Travis Perry, Newfoundland and Labrador Chairperson of Canadian Federation of Students. He will pose a question to the leaders.
Perfect, thank you. First of all, on behalf of the more than 28,000 public post-secondary students that I represent, I just wanted to say thank you to the NLTA for letting us ask a question. And I'd just like to note that many of the comments that all three leaders said tonight very much apply to the importance of public post-secondary education as well. So a new poll conducted by Abacus Data and released by the Federation this morning showed that students aren't alone in our call to keep the tuition freeze. A full 82% of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians support a continued tuition fee freeze, and 85% of voters have a long-term vision for education that includes free post-secondary education. This position, shared by the vast majority of voters in the province, is a sensible one. The tuition freeze is working to stem our population decline. Since the policy was implemented, we've seen a 411% increase of students relocating to Newfoundland and Labrador from the rest of Canada, and a 350% increase in international students, and those students are staying. So my question is, if your party is committed to growing our population, will you commit to keep the tuition fee freeze for all students who relocate to this province from the rest of Canada and around the world?
Thank you, Mr. Perry. The order of speakers will be Mr. Ball, Mr. Davis, and Mr. McCurdy. Mr. Ball, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you, Travis, for your question. We know within our school system it's important. We know that we have a declining enrollment. We also know that at the post-secondary institutions it's extremely important that we maintain a critical mass if we want to make sure that our university, in this case, remains competitive and attracts students from outside Newfoundland and Labrador. What I've committed to is maintaining the tuition freeze for Newfoundland and Labrador students. Then we will look at the other mechanisms that are in place, things like residence fees, availability of work within the province, of course. And so we need then to better understand where we need to be, but we will remain competitive. We want Memorial University to remain competitive in the world stage. Maintaining a freeze for Newfoundland and Labrador students is something that we've made the commitment to. And I do get how important it is to attract people to our province to attend Memorial University, how important it is to population growth into the future and meeting what the future market needs are for skills development in the province. So our commitment right now is to maintaining the freeze for Newfoundland and Labrador students and making sure that we remain competitive on the international and interprovincial scene, making sure that Memorial University is still an attractive place to attend post-secondary education.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Mr. Davis, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Yeah, we're on the record in our plan that we released this week. It's clearly articulated that we want to continue to have competitive tuition rates, the lowest in the country today. We also want to ensure that we continue to have a quality education from our post-secondary institutions. And it's interesting to see that while our K-12 population declines, our post-secondary education, our post-secondary population remains stable and remains strong. And that's partly to do with the freeze that funding we've provided to Memorial University so they could continue to with the freeze and to keep the tuition rates low. And we've done that. We'll continue to work with Memorial University. And while we have to run and work within budgets, we encourage them, as I did last year, to maintain tuition rates that were the lowest in the country, to continue to do that. And the other step that we've taken as a government, and everyone here in the room knows, the cost and burden of a post-secondary education. And we're the first government in Canada, we're the first province in Canada to convert loans to grants for our students in Newfoundland and Labrador, so they can get a post-secondary education, and when they complete that education, not be burdened with the high debt load that they quite often carry out after.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. McCurdy, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. I, along with the 3 members of our small but mighty caucus, went to the town hall at the Canadian Federation of Students held at Memorial this spring concerning fees. And it was interesting to listen to international students, one after another, go to the mic and tell their story and talk about how they had to scrimp and save to be able to make it here. And the low fees here are a competitive advantage for our province, which I support and I think we need to maintain. And the people with lots of money from other countries are going to primarily to the major centres. But it is a real advantage to us. We have a declining working age population facing us. We're going to need those people with their ingenuity, with their smarts, with their drive as part of the thing. So I believe in that. I believe we should maintain the freeze for international and out of province Canadian students as well as our own students, because we need to draw these people. We need to take advantage of their skills and their innovation to drive our economy. For the people in the province, I believe in it because an affordable, accessible education for all, regardless of hometown and regardless of income level of the family, should be the goal, surely, of any society. So I fully support it, and I do support the decision, and I applaud it, to move to a grants instead of a loan-based funding for students.
Thank you, Mr. McCurdy. We were hoping to have time for some questions from the floor. However, our gentlemen on the stage, I think, used their time wisely. I think the breadth of the discussion covered a fair number of areas and topics. At this point, each party leader will now be provided up to 2 minutes to summarize and make closing remarks. The order of speakers is Mr. Ball, Mr. McCurdy, and Mr. Davis. Mr. Ball, you have 2 minutes for closing remarks.
Well, in closing, I'd like to thank the NLTA for the invitation to be here tonight to discuss the status of our education system and the opportunity to do things better. Education is interconnected with so many other issues tied to our well-being as a people and as a province. It shapes the students of today, the leaders of tomorrow. And that requires big picture thinking. A part of that is recognizing the power of the K-12 system to nurture students and help them reach their full potential. Whatever their background or challenges outside of school, students go through the system together. They learn from teachers, and they learn from each other. You are preparing them for the world out there, and we all know that it can be rough sometimes. The current government has had 12 years and $25 billion in oil revenue and the opportunity to invest in education. And yet, here we are. Students are performing below other provinces. Teachers are crying out for relevant professional development. and we have the highest unemployment rate amongst provinces. We've been at the mercy of government who failed to plan. They grew complacent on non-renewable resource wealth. They botched the inclusive education strategy, and their excellence in mathematics was just a complete non-starter. Now, I'm optimistic about our future, but there is no future without young, well-educated people. Liberals will create the conditions for young people to build meaningful lives here in our province, and we'll do that by establishing our task force on educational outcomes. So you can have your say. Promoting inclusive education so that fits the needs of all students, and empowering administrators, teachers by working together and providing the supports that you need. We are committed to working with you because we believe that we can do better for our administrators, for our teachers, students, and for parents. So it's time for Newfoundland and Labrador to realize the full potential of our K-12 system and create a 21st century learning environment for students and for teachers. So on November the 30th, I ask for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Mr. McCurdy, you have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you to the NLTA for the invitation to participate in this event, which I think is a terrific event. Thanks to all of you for coming tonight, in particular any who happen to reside in the district of St. John's West. The well-being of our youth is an issue that we have to address as a community. This means giving teachers the tools and the training to address potential issues early. It means making students, teachers, and parents aware of the services and programs available in the schools and in the community. For example, inclusion should work for everybody, but instead it's not really working for anybody, and we have to be willing to change the way we do things so they get better for all of us. I believe inclusion is doomed to failure unless teachers and students are given the resources to do the job properly. We'll speak out in the NDP on issues related to education, whether at the K-12 or at the post-secondary education level, because any modern, successful, dynamic society is founded on a robust education system. I talked earlier about the announcement we made today, which involved $7 million in funding to reverse cuts to the 77.5 teacher positions, and an additional $7.5 million to increase the staffing for psychologists and counselors in the school. We costed those items, and we will be laying out a platform outlining our total platform and where the funds will come from. That's because it's a matter of priorities. It was one thing to get in and talk about how important something is, and it's quite another to put your money where your mouth is, say, here is what we will do, not wait for a task force, not wait for a committee, say, here's what we will do, here's what funding we will commit to it, and here's where the funding will come from. It's a matter of priorities. So if you're a teacher, a student, or a parent looking for an education system that works for you, the NDP is on your side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCurdy. Mr. Davis, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Smith and Mr. Dinh and members of the NLTA. Thank you very much for holding this forum this evening. And so tonight you've heard a lot of words, you've heard a lot of talk, you've heard some similarities, and you heard some difference. And the question that many may ask is, well, who can we trust? Well, I suggest you look at our record, because no government has done more to advance education and educational supports in Newfoundland and Labrador than we've done, even in tough fiscal times as we are facing today. And in tough fiscal times, we've seen the record of the Liberals in the past. Many of you remember the 90s, when legislated contracts away, massive cuts to public service. I've chosen a different course for us in our province. We had the worst level of poverty in Canada in 2003. Today we have the lowest level of poverty. We have the second highest salaries in Canada today. And contrary to what Mr. Ball will tell you, we still have amongst the lowest unemployment rates in our history. I'm ready to build on the results of our government and that we've already delivered on for you and the students. You should aspire to have, and we should aspire to have, one of the best education and educational support systems in the country. We have to do a better job of supporting our great schools and our fabulous teachers. We need well-fed and healthy students who are physically and mentally ready to learn. And are we making progress? We absolutely are. Can we do better? We absolutely can, and we can do that together. I'm a willing partner. My history of partnership is straightforward and is well known. My record, our government's record, proves that we're willing to prioritize education even in tough times. We have the highest level of per pupil investment in education in the country. We have fewer students, but we have 14,000 actually fewer students, but we have 50% more funding. And as I said, the highest level of pupil funding in Atlantic Canada. So that's our record, and that's what leadership is about. Willing to listen, willing to move, willing to make progress, willing to make improvements, and willing to do it with you. That's the way forward. I'm ready to partner with you to make even greater progress in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. I would like to once again thank the audience here and those watching online for your attention, interest, and support of education. I also want to thank the three leaders for their participation and thoughtful answers. Good luck to each of you on November 30th, and those of you in the audience have some concrete things to hold their feet to the fire on come the end of November. I'd also like to thank the Newfoundland and Labrador Teachers Association for organizing this forum on education and helping ensure that education is a priority. No doubt, our children and their future must be the #1 priority. I want to thank you for inviting me to moderate this forum. I relish every opportunity to be able to fill my lungs with that great salt air. So thank you for coming this evening. Safe drive home. Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks.